Hey, how's it going? It's Craig. I'm out in the garage, and today we're going to take a look at a modification to my Blaze Evercade. Let's take a look. Okay, so the Blaze Evercade, I picked one of these up in lockdown. There was a couple of high school groups going around and I just wanted to be part of that. I admit I gave into peer pressure and everyone was buying them, and I just thought, you know what, if everyone's buying them it can't be as bad as some of the rumours I've heard from the haters. So I went and bought one down in Argos. I bought the premium pack with the 3 games, and yeah, the 3 game packs are pretty good. The Evercade system, I found the joypad a little bit not to my liking. Some people absolutely love it, and the screen viewing angle as well. And I know you can connect them straight away into a HDMI. You've got to buy a little mini HDMI adapter to it, connect it up to your TV, and then it's absolutely fine. But I was playing Pac-Man and things like that as a high score challenge and just wasn't getting it, and I was blaming it on the hardware, to be totally honest. I was saying, oh, I couldn't get there with the D-pad, and the D-pad was all over the place. But ever since that I was like, right, so I've got to get something sorted. And I've had an idea in my head since that point. So what I'm doing today is going to try and take this Evercade apart. I have no idea how to take this apart. There doesn't seem to be any tutorials on the internet or YouTube or anywhere. So I'm going to try and take it apart. Please do not follow this as an instruction guide on how to do it. Watch the video through, just because I might break something or damage something, or you're certainly going to void your warranty on this system if you do what I'm doing. If I do successfully get this modded to the way that I want to, then obviously watch the video through, watch it through again, and then go and do the mod yourself. But yeah, honestly, I'm going to be taking this apart, having a look inside it, see what we can do, and then see how we can hopefully put some additional controls onto this thing. So you'll have the HDMI out, which is standard, and then an extra control pad on there just to give you a little bit of flexibility. Okay, let's have a look what we can do. Let's take it apart and see where we get on. Cool, catch you in a bit. Okay, so this is my Evercade. I tried prying it open with this plectrum earlier. I can get into the top. The top has a couple of clips. There's a clip there, and then there's a clip just here. So those clips are not really holding it tight, and I can it's going to be really difficult to try and show this on screen. But they don't really hold it tight. They hold it in, and obviously it's giving it a bit of structure to it. But it's around these edges, when you get to this side, it gets really tight on this top end. And when you get to here, so there's something here and here on this system which is holding it in. So I'm guessing there's some kind of clip that it goes into, which makes it really hard to get it back open again. Right, got a pop. Oh, and I snapped something. Right. Okay, I can see what it is now. Okay, so I know what it is. So basically, this is a skin that goes over the top, and then there's screws holding it in all 4 corners. And I've just snapped one of those pillars. It'll be fine, because once I get it all apart, I will be able to glue that back down and get that pillar back in place. So the next thing is, how do I get this off without snapping that entirely? They did not want these to come apart, did they? Okay, so that is underneath that top layer. I hope you can see this now. Let's try and zoom in a bit. Okay, so we've got our screwdriver underneath this top lens now. So this lens is like a screen protector, basically like a glass screen protector.
why didn't I think of this before, that they would have done it this way around? But then, there was nothing hinting it, was there? Right, we've gone way past the point of return now with this Evercade. This definitely isn't going back to the shops or under warranty at any point, is it? But it's just to show I love the Evercade. I really want this system to really be something I use more often. So taking this off is a promising thing for it. Okay, so zoom that back out. Okay, so we take this off now. The big reveal. Wow, there's loads of screws under there. I just snapped it to bits. So that's come off quite nice. I did mark it right at the top when I first put that screwdriver in, and I put it in a really obvious place just because I'm a dumbass and I shouldn't have done it there. But let's put that aside. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places, and then it's covered in a sticky residue. Let's turn him on quickly. Yeah, covered in bits of plastic now. So this is going to need a good clean up with isopropyl afterwards anyway. But I think it's this corner I snapped. That's cool. So we've got that far. I'm happy with that. Let's take a break and come back in a second.
Okay, so avoid that whole first part of trying to pry it open. That was obviously not good for the system and not good for my well-being. I scuffed it up around the edges a little bit, but it's not too bad. So what we're going to do now is take these 6 screws out, see what's underneath, see how we can get to the D-pad and the other things, and see if there are any solder points underneath this that we can work with to wire in a third-party control pad. So let's take these 6 screws out first of all, and then we'll go from there. Cool. Okay, so that's the 6 screws out. Hopefully this should, without too much wedging now, I'm fed up of wedging things open. Without too much wedging, we should be able to get this to come away. Hopefully without too much wedging, because I probably snapped most of the posts. No. But no, I think I only snapped the one. And that should be fairly straightforward to glue back in afterwards. Okay, there's our snap post, so let's shake that out. Oh, there's a button as well. So let's keep all these parts aside so we know what we're going to insert later. Okay, so the headphone port jack is on a ribbon cable, I can see that, and so is our D-pad is on a cable as well. I can see the battery up here as well. Okay, let's try and flip him over. See what's on this side. Okay, so it's coming away pretty clean now. Let's see what we can do, how much room we've got on these cables. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and that'll free up these 2 ribbon cables as well without having to disconnect them. So let's do those. Interesting to see they've got the D-pad on a separate connector. I wonder, do you know I mentioned the D-pad's a little bit sloppy for my liking. I wonder if I was just to put some washers behind this and bring it a little bit closer so the pads were a bit tighter, if that would resolve anything. So let's see what comes out of it first of all. Well, that's quite interesting. So we've got 5 buttons on here. I'll show you now. So we've got down, up, left, right, and we've got the L pad switch on there as well. So that's the button as well, which is micro switched, tiny little micro switch on there. So that is part of obviously this shoulder button here. Volume, headphone adapter on the bottom. Oh, if I can get my screwdriver in there, we'll get that out quickly. The only other screws then is the 2 around the cartridge, and I'm guessing that's just shielding for the cartridge, so we're not going to take those out because we don't need to. It'll stand separately. It's what we need it to do. There we go. So let's move that out the way. Oh, dropping it down the front. Let's take that screw out of there so we don't lose it. Okay, so we have the back of the system now. Is looking pretty interesting. So it's obviously a really nice modern board in here. That's our battery. We've got a 2000 milliamp battery in here, 3.7 volts. 3.7 volts is typical for your kind of battery charger off of a mobile phone charger, which this one is. It's a micro USB charge. The other shoulder button is up here on this micro switch. So far I know that off the back of this I can run cables to the back of that micro switch there. I've got gold pins on each of these, left, right, up, down, so I can see the left, right, up and down, so I can solder straight onto the back of those as well. That's quite interesting, so I'll do a close-up on those in a little bit. L1, I've got an L1 pad there, so I can shoulder go onto that, and then I reckon the rest of it then is just ground. So yeah, so if I'm looking at this, hopefully I can zoom in, focus on this a little bit. If I go, this is labelled up, so ground, right, L1, I think I got it upside down, L1, up, down, left. So I could either snip these wires and wire straight into these wires, but I want it to be functional as a handheld as well, or I could probably solder straight onto the back of these copper pads. So I've got L1, up, right, left and down. So I'm going to use those as my solder pads for my new joystick input. On this side then, let's see if we can lift this battery out of place. Is it glued in? Trying to see how that's fixed on. I'm guessing it's just a sticky pad on the back of it. Yeah, by the look of it. Obviously don't want to damage a battery too much because these are LiPo batteries and they will catch fire if you pop them, so you don't want to be messing around with that too much. But okay, so on the back of this one now I can see I've got R1, Y, X, B, A, start and select. So I've got solder pads for all of these buttons now that I can solder out onto. Okay, so now we've got it apart. I think, just quickly looking over it, there's lots of unused pin headers in this. So I think this central board is used for, could be used for other systems. I know Blaze have got plans in the future to do other systems. There's a teaser clip out there for an Evercade 2 or Evercade something else. I can't remember what it was called, but could be that they're using the same kind of system in there than they are here. So I think this is some kind of video input, VCC, SDA. There's a clock, a ground, an input 1 and input 2 maybe. Down here we got a VCC, a ground. I don't know what these other ones are, STB, SEYRX, so I don't know whether they're connected to the main screen. I'm not sure. They seem to have copper in them, whereas this one doesn't, so maybe, I don't know whether the screen's connected on the other side or not. Over this side we've got a reset, an LED plus minus, so I'm guessing that's the LED on the power LED, a VCC, an ACC and a ground. So again, there's lots of connectors on this board. I'm not 100% sure what they are. If you have any ideas what all of this means and what you think each of these elements are, please comment in the comments down below, because I'm interested to find out a little bit more about this. I could take this out now and take it apart a little bit further, but I don't think I'm going to achieve anything by that, because what I plan to do is solder onto the back of these pads, so I can probably leave it in place while I'm doing that. So what I'm going to do is screw this back. Oh no, that screws into the base, doesn't it? Okay, I might pop this one out of this connector. This one seems to have a ribbon cable behind it as well. Should we take them out? Should we take these two boards out? Yeah, let's take these two boards out. This one just needs that ribbon cable taken out. This one's got 1, 2, 3 screws, and then there's a ribbon behind it, so I need to be careful with that one. So I'll take these out, and then we're going to be soldering onto the back of these. I'm going to run a cable down here. I wonder if next to where our headphone jack is, I could drill another hole and get a cable coming out of there. Right, so let's get this out. Okay, so I know this one's got a ribbon cable underneath. Let's move that battery across a little bit. Oh, have I damaged that? Wonder if I've damaged that trying to wedge it open and things. What was this for? Up, down, left, right. Oh man. No, it's for AB. Oh, I wonder if I'd done that, wedging that screwdriver underneath. Hopefully that's not damaged and it's not ripped through it. It looks okay, it looks like it's just kinked at the moment. What a nightmare. That's a massive learning curve. Do not wedge things underneath. You can end up damaging that cable from there. Okay, so we're just going to pull these shoulders up on this ribbon cable connector. I don't know whether I'll be able to... Well, I should be able to get a ribbon cable to replace this if it is damaged, but look at that. It's not too bad by the look of it. Let's hold it up to there. See where there's a kink here? That's probably where I was wedging the screwdriver, or the wedge is underneath trying to pry it open. That's when I snapped this as well. Absolute nightmare. What an idiot. Why did I do that? But there we go. We learn, and hopefully this has saved people from doing the same mistake. I'm just going to pull that battery out as well. Oh god, that's tight onto that. There you go, so the battery's out. Okay, so we've got this board now, so this is our X, Y, A and B. So we can solder straight onto the back of these, so we can keep that isolated away from the main system, which is great. The other thing we need to do is take this one out, which is our up, down, left and right. So this one looks like it's just a pull connector as well. Yep, so that just pulls off. Okay, so now we've got our main system. I can move this out of the way. Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy with that. These pinouts I was looking at earlier, this is for our buttons obviously. So this is the ribbon cable that connects that daughter board. So X, R, what's R for? Right shoulder? Yeah, no, left shoulder. X, R, Y, AB, start, SE, select, ground and VCC. Okay, so that's our button connection, so we could solder straight onto that. Now that I've got this board out though, I'm going to do it straight onto the board. I wonder if I got the same over this side. No, I've got power, right, left, up and down, yeah, so there is a pin header there that you could solder into as well. If I got that ribbon cable out of the way, I could have soldered straight into that. Okay, so these daughter boards just literally feed off of it and push out the way, which is pretty cool. Okay, so this is our donor SNES pad. It's a third-party SNES pad, but it's pretty decent, responsive. They're pretty decent pads, to be honest. I know they're really basic inside, and the way the SNES pad works is not ideal. So this whole... Ideally inside of this pad you'd have buttons and cables that map to the buttons. So from the Y button you would have a green wire, from the X button you'd have a blue wire, red wire, yellow wire, and then additional wires for all of these extra buttons. But it doesn't actually work like that. There's a little chip inside of here, or a little bit of programming that goes on inside of here. So when you press that, it all comes across to the center and then comes out to your Super Nintendo or your Super Famicom. So it's a data line that comes out. So that's why you've only got 3 there and 4 there. So you've got 7 wires, which doesn't map up to the amount of wires that you've got on your SNES control pad. So that's a bit of an issue, because obviously we want to be able to map directly to each button. So we're going to have to get rid of this cable entirely. So there's a bit of soldering to do on the back of this control pad onto the pads here. Then there's going to be a bit of soldering to do on the other end. So what we're going to use to speed this up a little bit is a 15-pin connector. So this is a 15-pin extension lead cable that I bought for the Neo Geo CD. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use the male end as almost like a connector coming out of the bottom of this Evercade, and then we're going to use the other end to connect into this so we can disconnect our control pad. So what I'm going to do is snip this, wire this directly into the board, and then wire those directly onto the SNES control pad. So it's quite a bit of work to do, wiring and soldering and things, but it shouldn't be too much. It's I don't know, maybe 15. Hopefully we'll get away with using the 15 pins in this. I can't see why not. I think this allows you to take up to 6 buttons: to start, select, and up, down, left, and right, and a ground. So that should be fine. Okay, so let me get on with this. I'm going to probably need to trim this back, find a way of getting this cable to go inside the Evercade case, and then we're going to go from there and wire everything up. Cool.
Okay, so the ideal situation would be now is to have multiple wires coming out of here that map to all of these pins, but that's not the case. So each of these buttons will each have a common ground. The ground will be the same across all of the buttons, but they all feed into this little black blob here, and that little black blob then feeds out to these cables which go to your Famicom or Super Nintendo, and that's what the data is transcribed, converted, whatever you want to call it. So the data comes into here, it comes out of here, straight back into your console. So we can't use this chip any way that I know how to anyway, to use this data. So all of these cables are useless. We're going to snip them off in a second. We're going to get rid of all that. And what we're going to run wires to is just these pads. So we're going to run tiny little wires to these, as small as we can get them, as small as solder points as we can, just so it doesn't interfere with it too much. There's nothing on the back side of this board to do it onto, so we're going to have to do it straight onto these copper pads, and just hope that it doesn't get in our way when we're pressing our buttons down, that it's not making a full connection. Hopefully that shouldn't be the case. On the left and right L and R buttons we can probably use these solder points, that's fine. It's just the rest of it I think we're going to have to find alternative points. I'll have a look which one is the ground on here as well. We'll do that with a multimeter now. Let's have a look. If I can find my multimeter, here it is. So basically one of these pins on this L and R button is going to be ground. So if we test our ground first of all, so these two are ground, and the right hand side of that one is ground, and the left hand side of that one is ground. So the outsides are ground, so I'll probably use that as my wiring point for my ground, and then inside, right. So what I might do quickly is get a little marker pen and mark up on this board where all the grounds are. Okay, so what I want to do is replicate what this board is now on paper, just so I've got a bit of a colour grid of what I'm going to map across to. So I've got 4 buttons, up, down, left, right, they're split in half, and then we've got an L button up here, we've got a start button, a select button, whichever way around they are, and then 4 buttons over here for, again these are all split in half, and then we've got a right button up there. So that's our button grid layout. So basically we're going to have a cable coming off with a connector there, a connector here, and then this is going to go into our Evercade system and then feed into those 2 pads systems here, L button, and then over this way to our up, down, left, right, L, right button, and then the start and select I think was on one of these pads as well. I can't remember which side it was on, but it was on one of them. Maybe it was over here, start and select. So we're going to basically be wiring directly from these to these, but I'm going to put the connector in place so we don't have to wire directly. So in total I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and a ground, 13 wires going across to the 13 wires over here. So I'm going to do the 13 wires on here first of all. Once I've done, what I'll do is probably write 1 to 13 down, and as I'm going through it write down what colour I'm going to use for that, because that'll give me a little bit of an idea when I'm wiring this across. So if I say wire number 1 is red, wire number 2 is blue, and then just do it that way, then I'll know exactly which buttons are which, and I can wire them across accordingly. So that'll make it a little bit easier for me, just to have a little bit of a map for me to work from. Cool, so let me get on with this and I'll catch you back in a bit. Okay, so what I've done now is I've mapped all of the pins from here to the cable, so I know what colour goes to where. My naming convention is probably not the best, and my handwriting's terrible, so I'll put a overlay of the actual pin out of this on top of here. But you're really going to probably need to do this yourself if you're going to do this mod, because this cable is probably, well, I imagine if you're going to buy an extension cable, they'll probably have the same colour cables in there, but you never know, it might be different for different manufacturers. So you're better off just doing what I've done. And all I used was a multimeter, just testing for continuity from each of these cables into the pins on there. Yeah, so now at least I know where we are. I'm going to map this to the same as the Neo Geo setup. So the Neo Geo setup, I've had a look online and I've got a pin out for that here. So I'm going to wire that in the same way, but that gives me everything I need now. So I know that I can start wiring into these connectors to match them up to whatever corresponding button we need to use. Cool. Okay, so I've wired all that together now. As you can see, my phone's going nuts. So I wired it all together. The cables are going to need to be routed up out of the way, so they're not going to interfere with the pads. I think this should work. Basically, the pads touch obviously these, and when you've got those little rubbers inside of there, they're going to push, and they should still make the connection. So I think that should work and be enough to do our connections for us. You are soldering straight onto the pads on the control pad, so it's not much. Well, there's a lot of copper there to grip onto, but obviously you're soldering straight onto it, so you've got to be careful of where you're soldering, and some of these may lift off when I'm putting it all back together. But what I've forgotten to do, oh no, it's fine. I thought I'd forgotten to put the cable through the shell first of all, but by the look of it, it comes through it anyway. So fingers crossed, if I can get all this back inside the case, in this case now, that's this part done. Then I've got to do the Evercade part, which is soldering the same corresponding cables onto these pads, and then I'm done. Cool, so it's a bit more soldering to do, but hopefully we should have a system up and running in a little bit. Cool, catch you in a sec. Okay, so I've wired everything up now. I hope it's going to work. I can't see why it wouldn't. I've got to put it back into the system, get the system up and running. But let's put it back together, see if we can get it working. Test it out with the game, and then see where we go from there. Cool. Okay, first of all, let's see if it switches back on. Yep. So our system's back working, which is good. I don't think I've got a cartridge out yet. I'm going to get a cartridge. I don't know what that button does. I haven't wired that one up, I don't think. don't think I've wired up. Okay, so all my standard buttons are working, which is great. That's good to know. Let me go and get a... oh, that gets a cartridge. I've got the Atari Collection 1 out here. I don't know whether I have to switch it off and switch it back on. Oh, there we go. So Atari Collection 1 is in there now. Let's just test the game quickly with it. I don't know. What I want to do. Motorcycle. Never played this game before. Left, right. There we go, and we crashed. Okay. This is the moment of truth. So we've got my SNES pad now with the 15 pin connected on it. I'm going to connect it into here. Now then, will this work at all? Let me zoom out on here and see if it works. So, in theory, if I press, yeah, so drive in, left, right, working. Control pad's working on an Evercade. Oh my god, that's amazing. Okay, so that's up. That's up and running. So we've got an Evercade with a working control pad on there now. I've run out of time, I think. I forgot to wire that button in. What a nightmare. But I'm just going to have to press that one. I didn't have any spare buttons on here. I've done start and select, A, B and everything else on there. What I'm going to do is switch this off. Can I just take the cartridge out? Let's quit the game. What I want to get back to, yeah, that's what I wanted. Back to that, so I can test. Up, down, left, right. Oh. Okay, select's working okay. Start's a bit dodgy. It does work. Gotta really press on it. Maybe that just needs a bit tighter because of the thickness of the screw. Yes, all my buttons are working as well. Oh, I don't know what I've done now. Okay. What have I done? Oh, this is a button test. Oh, look at that. Alright, so up, left, right, down, left trigger, right trigger. Yeah, my start and select are a bit dodgy. Cool, so that's working. My start and select seem to be a bit dodgy. I'd have to see if I can tighten this up a bit. Maybe if I tighten that up, they might work a little better. I can always press start and select on here, but I want to get them working, so I'll take that apart at some point just to test that out. But really chuffed that's working. What I need to do now is cut a little hole down in the bottom of this. So I'm just going to cut a little groove into it, get this cable so it's tucked into there a little bit neater. Then I can re-glue that post, screw them back in, stick our game shield back on, and then we've got a Evercade with a working joypad. Cool!
Okay, so there we have it, a modified Blaze Evercade. As you can see, it's all up and running. I can switch them on and we can get it booting up. Everything still works as a handheld. You've got this crazy 15 pin dongle coming out the bottom of it now to plug your joypad in. My modified joypad. I'd be interested to see if this works on my Neo Geo, because I've followed the diagrams to map that across, so that should work as a Neo Geo pad as well. I got a little bit of an issue with the start and select on this, but I'll just test them out and probably take it apart and check that I haven't moved the rubbers out of the way. But that's wired up to a 15 pin connector as well. Yeah, my ideal solution for this Evercade, I think it's a great idea and the concept behind it is really good. So having licensed cartridges and being able to expand your collection in that way is really cool. But for me, playing it as a handheld, I just didn't get on with it. So now with the joypad connector, the HDMI lead, which I'll buy a new adapter for. I bought an adapter, but I bought the micro one, not the mini one, I think. I don't know what the exact wording is, but I bought the wrong one. So if I buy the right one, I'll be able to connect my HDMI into this, connect my modified joypad into the bottom of it, connect my USB charger into it, and I can play Evercade as long as I want. I'm really looking forward to it, and it's definitely going to make me buy some more games for it, because the games that I've got already, I've got the 3 in that pack, and there's loads coming out. There's the Atari Lynx pack and things like that. I'd love to see what they look like on the screen and get playing on them on a joypad as well. So yeah, cool. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's a bit of a random mod. I've not seen anything out there on YouTube modding the Evercade. I've not modded it to break the system or to try and hack it. I've seen some of those mods on there. I'm not really into all that. If you're going to mod or hack a system, then you might as well buy an emulation system in the first place. But to me, adding this is adding functionality to it, or modifying the functionality to it. It's almost making it more accessible for my needs rather than altering the system in any way. I know Evercade have got more systems coming out in the future. I'm really keen to see what they do, and certainly modifying this is going to put me off of buying those as well. So yeah, cool. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that, if this is the first time you're watching any of my videos, please subscribe down below, leave us a comment. I welcome any kind of comment. Let me know I'm an idiot, let me know anything that I've missed. This is a real bit of a hack job. I've actually soldered this really quickly. The cable needs some kind of securing in there, so yeah, it wasn't meant to be a tutorial in any way. It was just a proof of concept to see if we could get this working. So please comment down below, drop us a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you soon. Cool.